It is Thursday night in East Lansing, Michigan. My name is Jim Comparoni, publisher, SpartanMag.com. Welcome to Spartan Mag Live. Make sure to put some comments there in the chat area. We will talk Michigan State sports for the next hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, however long you bananas want to stick with me and ask questions. We'll be firing them. We'll be taking them. We'll be deflecting them. We'll be taking them, fielding them, having a good time with it, talking Michigan State football, basketball. We've got about 10 or 11 questions on tap, ready to get to those here shortly. Over at the Underground Bunker message board, Spartan Mag subscribers, Michigan State fans from all over the country, posted questions. I will be reading those questions mailbag style here, about 9 or 10 or 11 of them. Unless we get a lot of phone calls and we get diverted in that direction, we can do that as well. And things are different here when we take phone calls. A lot of times it'll be longer discussions. A lot of talk shows, someone calls in, they hang up on them, and they move on. I kind of like it if we get into a discussion, a little bit of back and forth. Looking forward to hearing from some regulars, maybe some new ones. Go ahead and give us some of your thoughts, and we'll get to those. Also have a new, I'll get to that later if it comes up. And I really need to comment on who sent it in, but we'll talk about that later. Anyway, Spartan Mag Live, there's about 2 or 3 inches of snow on the ground in East Lansing, Michigan, maybe 4 or 5. It's been cold, like 32, 35. Not real cold. Cold enough that it has not melted. Not cold enough that we can get on the pond to do some skating. I'm disappointed about that. A little bit of snow. Need some more snow to get some cross-country skiing going, but that's not what we're talking about. You guys don't care about that. You want to hear about Michigan State. Michigan State basketball. Michigan State coming back strong. Who we got here? Not able to answer it for some reason. For some reason, hey, old Tuck's trying to call here, and for some reason, it's not picking up for me. Not sure what happened there. Appreciate old Tuck calling in. See if we can call him.
Old Tuck.
For some reason, I couldn't pick up. I'm not sure what happened. We always have technical difficulties here at Spartan Mag Live, but that's part of the fun. Old Tuck, appreciate you calling in, leading off for us tonight. You want me to go ahead and continue to set the table a little bit?
Yes, please do.
All right, Michigan State Spartans, number 23 ranked team in the country. A resounding 68-45 victory over the Rutgers Scarlet Knights here at the Breslin Center. I'm not actually at the Breslin Center. That's a picture back there. If I were at the Breslin Center, I'd have a mask on, and you don't want to hear me talk through a mask tonight. But Michigan State, 8-3, now 2-3 in the Big Ten. I don't know if this will get Michigan State back in the Big Ten race, but as Judd Heathcote used to say, it gets Michigan State back in the human race. The human race. Michigan State looking like Michigan State for a game and a half, 2 games. And by the time people watch this, Michigan State may have already played Purdue. Recording this about 24 hours before the Michigan State game against Purdue at Breslin Center. We will learn more about Michigan State at that time, but it sure looks a lot more favorable now than it did about a week and a half ago. Not surprised, considering the person who's running the ship, Tom Izzo. But this was a different puzzle than he's had in the past, but things looking positive again for now. And we'll see what happens as we move forward. Let's go off to Austin, Texas, by way of Ludington, Michigan. One of our regulars, Old Tuck, chiming in. Old Tuck, how you doing today? What's going on? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I didn't get a chance last time, Comp, to get in on the fun there. We had Nils and the third and fourth batters that I kind of gave the mic to them. So I was happy to get a hold of you tonight. I wanted to just talk about the Holgard experiment through 2.5, 3 games now. I think, you've been watching for 25, 30 years how Izzo turns the screws, and he's a Hall of Famer, and he's willing to stick his neck out there a little bit. Mm-hmm. I was a little leery about it, but man, again, it looks like it's probably the right move. Holgard's been better than I thought he would. He hasn't turned it over as much as I expected, maybe. Mm-hmm. But I'm curious, too, what you think, because Rockets' minutes have really gone down further than I thought they probably would. Mm-hmm. And I guess I'm curious maybe what your thoughts are there. I got to believe he's going to start playing more than 20 minutes a game, but I think he played 15 the other night.
That's right. Rocket Watts played 15 minutes, 3 out of 8 from the field. Hit the 1 3-pointer late, had an assist. Did a real nice job on one play where he took an outlet pass, pushed it in transition, went down to the rim, was fouled. That was about 7-8 minutes to go, and Rutgers was trying to hang in the game. And right there you saw some of what Rocket Watts can give Michigan State with that speed on the push. Good athlete. Everybody knows that. He can give you a little bit of a charge in that regard. But we saw earlier in the year that in terms of being the quarterback, down in and down out, in terms of basketball, Rocket Watts wasn't quite where they needed him to be. We saw that in a handful of basketball games. Izzo saw it every day in practice. I'm not at practice. We can't go to practice this year because of COVID situations. And I've not had a chance to talk to Izzo about it off the record, but you don't need to look too deeply to understand that Izzo saw during practice and in some of the games that the decision-making is not what he demands at point guard for the whole operation to run the way we've expected it to run at Michigan State. His quarterback is so important, and some of those decisions just were not being done. Once in a while, he did some dazzling things, but didn't quite earn the trust. Izzo says they expect to revisit that at some point. I think they would love to develop him as a point guard for the future. And yes, he will be playing some point guard every game from here on out. And there's a question in the mailbag that'll delve into this also. I have a feeling that we'll talk a lot about Hoggard tonight. Certainly an interesting aspect of a basketball team that is still under construction. And I never would have thought 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 3 months ago, that so much of this season and this season's ceiling would come down to the play of A.J. Hoggard at the point guard position. Hey, kudos to him for coming in, playing with a lot of maturity as an incoming freshman. Had some injuries earlier in the year before the season with the knee. Has come in and a lot has been thrown on his plate. And he's looked pretty steady, pretty solid with it. And I'm intrigued to see, where he can go from here, where he can become better. And will he hit a freshman wall? What will the opponents do as they see more film of him? Can that make it more difficult for him? I don't know, but I agree. It's looked more favorable. And I'll say this. I think that Aaron Henry has looked better since Hoggard has went to point guard. I think Josh Langford has looked better. I think in the past, Langford and Henry at times were a little bit frazzled, trying too hard to do maybe too much, trying too hard to create their own offense, maybe knowing that Watts consciously or subconsciously was struggling with the quarterback position, the point guard position. And I don't see Langford and Henry doing as much, stepping outside their bounds and forcing as much as they were previously. Now, that might coincide with the fact that the team as a whole has had more practices. Izzo's had a chance to do more quality control, more film work. So it's probably some of that, and maybe also getting a little more comfortable with the point guard situation. I'm not saying that Hoggard is John Stockton. He's setting those guys up for great shots left and right. It's just that the operation, it's a little more smooth, a little more vision, and you're not getting as much harried play, panic play in the backcourt. And that has to be one of the reasons that Hoggard has provided a little bit of a rudder to that ship. Still a lot of work to do.
Yeah. And Hoggard's not, the other thing is he's not looking for a shot, so that can play Henry, Brown, a few guys with him, and there's still enough shots where, Rocket, he wants to score too. So
that's a great point.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I think about Dabo a few years ago. He had Kelly Bryant, and then he had that guy, that Goldilocks that's there right now. I can't think of his name, but he
Trevor
knew
Lawrence,
Kelly Bryant was good,
but
he knew Goldilocks was probably going to be the key to down the road as the season wore on to being successful. So he made the change early, and I think Kelly Bryant was mad, maybe even some fans, but that's Izzo again. I mean, it just looks like he's probably turned the right screw there to set us up for hopefully a pretty good run as we get into February and March. One other thing I had, Comp, was they're paring down Bingham and marble, it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder, I think, Kithier and Sissoko are probably, again, maybe got the 2 months down the road, have the higher ceiling, are going to be more valuable. Do you think it has something to do with the fact, too, that there's another Sissoko-type guy coming in next year if he reclassifies, and Izzo knows that he's probably going to lose Bingham or Marble to transfer anyways?
Great question. You're right. Bingham is playing less. Izzo mentioned him in the press conference today that they may need Bingham against Purdue's Travion Williams because he's had success with Williams in the past.
Yeah.
Bingham played a little bit in the first half against Rutgers. Marble did not play at all. Izzo mentioned that during the holidays it was a tough time with Marble having lost his father in 2020. Marble's mother came up and visited him. So it's been a tough time for him, but Marble's got the ability to do it. I'm just wondering, haven't heard anything, and sometimes I can, this is one of the good things about not having off-the-record comments with Izzo, because if you talk off the record, you can't relay what's really going on. I don't know what's going on, but like you're saying, if Boachi comes in and reclassifies next year, that's pretty crowded. 6 front court players with scholarships, 6 bigs, centers, and power forwards. Been talking about that all year, the difficulty of getting minutes for those guys. I wonder if the decision has already been made, that Marble might feel that with his father having passed on, he needs to be back closer to home in Texas. That's what's going through my mind. That's what I'm wondering. And I thought Michigan State was better in the second half against Rutgers, and I don't think it was a coincidence that they shrank the bench to do it. In the second half, Foster Loyer did not play, Bingham did not play, Sissoko did not play. They shrank the group down to 8, and the turnovers went away. I'm not saying that'll be the answer every single game. Izzo wanted to create more depth and play more players and play 12 because he felt at some point COVID would come into this, and every team in the country would have to go days and weeks without this player and that player. So he had a 12-man bench. Nobody transferred out during the offseason, and they figured a 12-man playing group was the way to hunt a championship long-term. As it's turned out, some of the individual development has been delayed a little bit because they've not gotten as many minutes. Now they've gotten to this point. They were 0-3 and early in the season, but it's not must-win situation time, but it's pretty close to a must-win situation in that Rutgers game. Ugly first half, shortened the bench. They played their best basketball of the season. So the uncomfortable situation there is you've got some players that are not playing as much. So now going forward, does Foster Loyer get his 3 or 4 minutes in the first half and sit the second half from now on? I think it's a possibility. Sissoko, I think they've got some plans for him. Short-term and long-term. There's a lot of big bodies in the Big Ten, and I think Sissoko factors in defensively, rebounding, and in other ways. That's a young guy that needs to get some on-court time. But Bingham, was a 15, 20-minute game guy last year. Hasn't really taken it up a level. I thought he looked really good early this season and has had problems since then. Anything else?
Yeah. I just think Bingham, he has to be scoring or getting opportunities to score in order for him to play 100%, both ends, run the floor. So when that's not happening, he's not as valuable. And so that's where guys like Kithier, Hogard, role players who don't have to score in order for them to play, 100% effort. That's why you got role players, because there's a place for them on every good team. So I'll just leave you with that, Comp. Thanks for taking my call.
I appreciate it. Thanks for calling in, Old Tuck. All right. Let me see if we can get texting somebody that called a minute ago. Get them on the line. Don't have a producer here, so kind of handling the calls in that fashion. Hopefully when we get another caller, it'll be able to pick up, unlike last time. Anyway, let's go over here to the I think we got a call coming in to the mailbag area. I'll take this time right now to say, if you're not familiar with SpartanMag.com, go check it out. Join the fun.
From
Callie Spartan.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press
All right, yeah, we're going to bring him in from Detroit, Michigan. We got Kelly Spartan. Kelly Spartan, how you doing, man? Welcome to SpartanMag Live.
Doing good, Comp. How are you?
Really good. Welcome to the show. Thanks.
Hey, so I just heard a little bit at the beginning of the show. So I know we're talking about basketball and the lineup and everything, but is it just me, or do you think that it's not just the shortening of the lineup, it's how Izzo's asking his players, or perhaps it's how they may have voiced to him how they think it's best to play. Like I'll use Henry as an example. So at the beginning of the year, I made an argument that he was probably our best facilitator, but when he hit like a slump where he was doing like a bunch of turnovers and probably was doing too much. Is it perhaps that maybe he talked to Izzo, or Izzo talked to the team, which is like, we know what you guys are best at. Just be elite at those things. Like, for example, you got AJ, who may not, he's a freshman. He came. I'm not saying he's elite right now, but he's the best facilitator. He may not get like 10 assists like Cash did, but the offense moves better. It's just like he's just that little bit of extra grease that keeps the gears going, like if things get stagnant. And he just kind of like people say it's like Denzel or like other lead guards we had in the past. He just kind of instinctually knows how to keep the game going. And I think that him being inserted into the starting lineup, along with the fact that, I think you mentioned this before, guys are kind of playing. They're not necessarily playing better, but they're playing as their best selves. Mm-hmm. Like Henry is no longer having to think about being a facilitator. Like he gets the ball, if he has a lane, he's going for it. Like you see Gabe, he's not like when he's open shot, he's taking the shot, or if he has a lane, he's going to dunk it. It's like in Langford, like much people talk about Langford, but I'm looking through the lens of it. He hasn't played in 2 years, and he's making good decisions. Like he may not be the physically as fast as he used to be or whatever, but he's making good decisions with the ball. His mid-range game, like the second half of the game on Tuesday, it just looked like he just woke, like, or Monday or whatever. I don't remember actually. So like the second half of that game, his mid-range was just coming alive, man. He was.
I'll stop you right there. I agree. Langford. There were a couple of times Rutgers got it down to about 11 points, maybe about 8 minutes to go in the game, and I wrote about this in the Hoop Feed article on late Tuesday night. And Michigan State ran like some side ball screen stuff over on the left, and he was hanging out over on the weak side, and the action on the strong side, nothing really came of it, and ended up kicking back out to him, and he did a pull-up jumper like 15 feet and kind of went to work. Shot clock's going down. That's when he looked for his offense. And if you're the opposition, you're like, man, we just stopped all this stuff, and they kick it back out there to a fifth-year senior, former McDonald's All-American. And sometimes that talent flashes. I'm not saying he's, top 20 talent anymore. He was at the age of 18 or whatever. And then it happened the very next possession. They ran like he came off a down screen curl. He actually came off down screen curl early in the first half, medium range like you're talking about. But 2 consecutive possessions, and the lead went from 11 to 15, and the game was over. And it was Langford operating from the weak side as like a fourth option, basically. And it looked smooth. It looked comfortable. Guys aren't competing with each other to hunt shots and everything. That looked like good basketball right then. That's something to build on. They've got more pieces to continue to work on, but I'll let you keep going with what you thought or what you were saying, because Langford did do some good things without intruding on the game, and he came in real nicely and helped Michigan State put a foot on the throat.
Right, and I think this is probably I think fifth-year senior coming off 2 years injury, Langford is probably the most cerebral player version of himself we've seen. Like when he came in, he had all that 5-star hype, and he was like, he probably thought to himself, I got to live up to all this stuff. I don't know. I never met him personally like that, but like you can kind of see, like in his shot selection, he was just kind of doing things. But like that second half, you saw it. When you used the word smooth, that's what it was. He would get the ball, gather, turn like a 90-degree angle, and just spot up and jump and shoot it. Like that's. I'm not saying he's going to the NBA before people start going crazy. That's NBA stuff.
You know what? I forgot.
When you have to hit,
I forgot. Specifically, the play was he got it when shot clock was running down. He drove in, did a double clutch left hand high glasser. Right. That was where it's like he hit like a hyperspace button there, only because of the situation, and had some go-to talent. A lot of people I was talking about, the game a couple weeks ago. There were times when Aaron Henry or some others would go to the rim and run out of talent, at the rim, which is something that I invented. I was always running out of talent trying to go to the rim. But Langford in that situation, shot clock going down, went to the rim, and he did not run out of talent in that particular situation. And it was just 2 points, but at that point of the game, it was important. This point in the season, it's important. Coming from that guy, it's intriguing.
You know why? I like what you just said there about like he didn't run out of talent. It was one of those things where how when Kenny shot that 3 over Zion and won the game,
yes.
It was just like you knew it was going in.
Yes.
Langford was having moments where he was hitting shots and there was no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And it's not just Langford. There's pockets of the past 2 games where I saw Henry shoot threes, and I used to be afraid, but like for those 2 games, I'm like, oh, these are going in. Like I'm starting to. It's like it's the part of the season, and I think it was Dr. Green and White or somebody who actually mapped out that like it was there's a time in the like midpoint of the year, this is what normally would be, where Michigan State hits a switch. And guys just kind of, it's like they might get the special water from Space Jam or something where their talent reaches the next level or something just happens. But like,
I think the special water. I think the special water is a guy named Tom Izzo, and that comes down that phrase, quality control. Quality control. When there's wrinkles coming out. There's wrinkles coming out of a loss and loose screws, and he gets out his iron and irons out the wrinkles and gets out a screwdriver and tightens the screws. And a week later, it looks like a different team, and we'll see if they can continue to build on it. But he's got the pieces, no question. They've got talent, but he has a way of getting it situated, and that's what we saw this week. We'll see if it continues against Purdue.
And I want to. I know you got other people who want to call in and stuff, so I just want to point out one more play, and it's a microcosm of the team because I talk about Malik Hall a lot. When you look at Malik Hall play and compare him to how the other bigs play, it's like he's not thinking and everyone else is. When I see Joey play sometimes, right now he's probably more offensively talented than Malik, but you can tell when you look at him, he's thinking too much. But you'll see there's the 2 plays that Malik scored in outside of getting free throws. You saw him do a dribble, spin, pivot move, and then just lay the ball up against the glass. That's a veteran move. And if you look at his face, you can't even tell if he cared. And that's just how locked in he was. And especially on the defensive side of the ball, he's like, even though he gave up that one shot fake, he's on guys like glue, man. And like he's just like. So have you watched the Pistons this year?
No.
Damn. Catch a game and watch whenever you see Isaiah Stewart play defense. Isaiah Stewart is like, he's locked in on guys, emotionless, and he's just like, you got to out-tough me. Like, I don't care what you got to do. If you want to score this basket, you're going to lose a nail. You're going to lose something because you're not just going to come here like doing layup lines. That's how Malik plays defense. That's how he does everything. Like when they played Duke and he just slammed the ground guy right up and just kept on going. It's like nothing phases him. And I think that's a key piece of this team.
Yes. Because
there's nights where you'll see him get like he got a double early in the year, and it's like you didn't even notice it because he was just workman-like. Mm-hmm. He picked up his lunch pail, and his hard hat, and he did the job. And I'm making a proclamation: if he's here for 4 years, that he's going to have one of the more heralded forward careers in Michigan State before it's all done.
I could see that, and there's a reason he's logging 27 minutes in a game like that. He had the second most minutes of anybody on the team. Aaron Henry played 35, Malik Hall played 27. You're bringing a guy off the bench that can play defense on Ron Harper Jr., extremely valuable role. And he was the first guy off the bench in that game. And, he's got some confidence with the defense. When the opportunity arises, he can finish. And we remember the game, I think, against Seton Hall when he scored 17 points last year. The stretch 4 component of his game as a primary scorer, that'll happen at some point in his career too. Right now, he's just biding his time, and they love the way he's going to work and providing some winning glue right now. He's further along as a sophomore than Kenny Goings was. Kenny Goings came in as a walk-on. Everybody knows that. Further along probably than Draymond was. I'm not saying he's got the high-end talent that Draymond does. Maybe he does. I'm not sure. But hey, valuable off the bench. And,
you know who he reminds me of?
Who?
Kuzma.
Really?
Can you see it? I can see it, man.
Kuzma's a little more slender and slippery, right? With more range shooting.
No, but I'm talking about like his people. He was kind of when people saw Kuzma in college.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, like he was kind of unassuming and no one saw him coming. But like by year 3, year 4, he can be that guy. He can do dunks. He can shoot. He already handles the ball a little bit now. I mean, think about it, Comp.
Oh, I like Malik Hall for sure, and I love the component he can bring off the bench in terms of a defensive matchup to lock up on some problems. You know, Sasha, what's his name for Purdue? I think he plays some 4. Might have to put him on that guy a little bit and move his feet. So yeah, Malik Hall doing some good stuff, and if they're going to continue to get better, he'll be a part of it. So I agree with you, man.
Was that a leap? Was that too much of a reach for me, Comp? I feel the hesitancy.
No, hey, far be it for me to say yes or no on something like that. Kuzma, the thing is, I don't remember Kuzma when he was 19 years old. You know, I only knew subsequently that he was coming out of Flint and doing what he did. So it's hard for me to think about Kuzma the pro right now at a world class level. If you're in that league, you're world class. You know, but you know, in terms of long term potential, long-term ceiling, no reason why he can't aspire to be, you know, a stretch 4 that can play some positionless basketball at the pro level with some face-up game, with Malik Hall face-up game developing later in his career. I think the range shooting is there, just they haven't gone to it, haven't probed that a lot, but that's coming. And most importantly, in that league, you can't be on the court unless you can guard somebody. You know, unless you can score 50, then they might let you stay on the court. But you have to be able to guard somebody, and he's got a frame and some strength and can move his feet. Positionless era, playing 3s and 4s. Yeah, I think he's got a future. If not in that league, he can make a lot of money in the European leagues because he's got that type of game too. Malik Hall.
Okay. Well, yeah, man. Well, thanks for letting me call in, Comp. I know the people want to get on.
One other thing about Hogard, one other thing that's interesting about Hogard is, he's been solid. Things are smoothing out. He's only been doing it for 2 games. And how much better can he get? You know, I mean, he seems like he's pretty stoic right now. Not much bothers him. But I want, is he just a facilitator, or can he deliver some plus aspects? I'm not sure. Hey, we know this.
Every time I try to leave, you maybe want to bring up another point. You know, someone at the barbershop said a funny name comparing him to somebody in the future, and it's way out there. You want to know who it was?
You're not going to say Antoine Joubert, are you?
No. Someone said that if he works his body right, he could be like Baron Davis.
Baron Davis was fast, right? Wasn't he really fast?
All I'm saying is this is just getting haircuts, man.
All right.
I was just like, are you serious? They're like, yeah, he's a big dude. He throws his weight around. Like if he works his body right, he might. Because like they're talking about there was a part of the game that happened where he just like it was a fast break, and remember where he just took it up the lane and like it looked like he was going to get knocked out, but he still got the layup.
Yeah.
They're like
strong contact.
They're like his acceleration at that point was faster than his body looked like it would allow.
Okay. Deceptively fast?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, he's a freshman. I'm not going to put Baron Davis on him. It's too early.
Yeah, I haven't studied Baron Davis enough, but when I think Baron Davis, I think speed, like open court speed. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But, or maybe I'm, somebody that he reminds me of, if you want to go really old school, this is before your time. Okay, the Pistons had a point guard before they drafted Isaiah Thomas, and the point guard wasn't so good, but he was a pro, and he was good in college at Oregon State, a guy by the name of Ron Lee. Ron Lee was not a great pro player, but that's kind of what Hogard reminds me of a little bit right now. Maybe Hogard can take it even further. A little more recent, there was a guy named John Bagley in the NBA a few years ago. But those guys are pros. Hogard's just getting started. Again, I never would have thought that so much of the season would be on his shoulders, and he's shouldering it pretty well right now, and a lot of work to go. And as a point guard for Tom Izzo, there's going to be games that they're going to lose, of course, and there's going to be times when he has the ball last or at other points in the game, and there's going to be some difficult times. I mean, when Cassius was a sophomore, junior, there were plenty of difficult times. So he has some difficult times coming up. Izzo's going to kick him in the rear, and Izzo has already told Aaron Henry, hey, when I kick him, you pick him up. So that's part of Henry's role as a leader right now, because Henry's taken it in the past. He knows what that's all about, and Izzo needs someone else to play good cop. And you'll see that when they come out of timeouts. Izzo will be all up in somebody's grill, and Aaron Henry will get in and say, no, wait, coach, I got this. Back in the old days, Izzo would be getting on Aaron Henry, and Cassius Winston would be in there saying, coach, I got this. Or in the older days, he'd be yelling at, I don't know, pick a player, and Draymond Green would be, coach, I got this. And that's what Izzo wants. And he's going to need that from Henry, because Hogard has some hard lessons coming up, because it's him or nobody. Well, I mean, they can try Watts, they can try Lawyer, but they've gone in this direction, and it's going to be full bore boot camp, Izzo quality control. It's going to be fun to watch.
Yes, sir.
All right, man.
Well,
Kelly Spartan.
See you, Kyle.
All right, appreciate you calling in. Appreciate that. Jump on in if you get a chance. Let's see what we got. Let me get back to the question here. Question number 1. Okay, a football question from Spartan Law 04 from Parts Unknown. He says, do you expect any changes on Coach Mel Tucker's staff? And I would not be surprised if that happens. I mean, it happens in, staffs all over the country every year. Would not surprise me. I've said this before. Would not surprise me if Mike Tressel gets a good offer somewhere. They're trying to fill up some new staffs at Auburn and South Carolina. I kind of expected some SEC money to come his way. I don't know. If there'll be more openings coming up later in the winter or not. Also, he asks, Spartan Law 04 from Parts Unknown asks, do you suspect attrition in the secondary at Michigan State this offseason was all encouraged by the staff? With Julian Barnett, no. They thought that he was coming back. They're a little disappointed that he left. Davion Williams, I think, no. I think that they did not encourage him to leave. Chris Jackson, it's my understanding they did suggest that he leaves. So, I don't know why. But that's what I heard from a good source. All right. What do we have here? Got some Hogard questions. Okay, we'll go coaching a little bit, football coaching again. Matt in Grand Rapids says, out of all the hires made this offseason in college football, are any of the coaches hired better than Mel Tucker? He says maybe Sarkisian, but he has had his problems in the past. That's the end of that question from Matt in Grand Rapids. Looking at the hires thus far, Texas. I mean, Texas, they go out and get Steve Sarkisian, who had, I think, a little bit of success at USC, then ran into some problems, went back to Alabama, got some things straightened out. The offenses looked great at Alabama this year. Everybody knows that. Great talent to work with. I mean, I'm not sure in terms of quarterback, tailback, wide receiver when we've seen a trio like that. It happens once in a while in college football. Back when at Penn State with Keyjana Carter and who they have? They didn't have a receiver like this kid at Alabama, that's for sure. But that team in '94 with Penn State that went undefeated, they had a great offense. Last year, LSU had that type of offense. So when you have those kind of players, you and I could call plays and they'd look pretty good. So Sarkisian looked great, and as I posted on the Underground Bunker message board at SpartanMag.com, he was fired. Herman was fired the day after that Alabama semifinal game, and I'm just guessing that the Texas people, the donors, and all the people that passed the big money hat down in Austin, they were watching that Alabama game, and the offense looked great again, and when it looked great, the next morning Herman was gone. So I think that was an audition of sorts, and we'll see. Herman, it was only 3 or 4 years ago that Herman was the great hire in college football, right? So now it's Sarkisian, it's Texas. So is he a better hire than Mel Tucker? Well, I mean, Texas has the ability to command the best coaches on the market in a given year. and they see Sarkisian as that guy right now. So is he a better hire than Mel Tucker? Different. But if so, that's a tough one. But Texas, Michigan State's never going to be able to compete with Texas on the open job market and hire a coach with a better resume. Very infrequently. Auburn, they go out and hire Brian Harsin from Boise State. Big surprise there, a guy that has very little experience and networking experience down in the Southeast, taking over Auburn. I mean, Malzahn beats Saban 3 times more than anybody else. They get rid of him. Harsin at Boise State, on paper, he's more, you could argue he's better than Mel Tucker. The resume is more impressive with all the 9-10 win seasons he's had at Boise State. However, he took over a great situation at Boise State and has not elevated it. If anything, they've lost a little traction at Boise State since he's been there. So he gets out, wants to go to a big rig. He goes to Auburn. Harsin, impressive guy, no-nonsense guy. You can make the case that he might be a better hire. But again, does Auburn have more firepower to go out and hire somebody than Michigan State? Maybe a little bit. Jolt and Joe would disagree with me about that. If you remember Jolt and Joe over at SpartanMag.com, a guy that has great respect for Michigan State and would check me and check others anytime anybody didn't give Michigan State enough credit on something. But Auburn, more firepower to go hire somebody. When they went and hired Malzahn had been an assistant there before, but Malzahn was a big-time hire at the time. The biggest. He was, he took a lot of credit for, and was given a lot of credit, rightly so, for the national championship they won with Gene Chizik there. So now they go get head coach at Boise State. Is the guy at Boise State, Harsin, a good fit at Auburn? Is Tucker a good fit at Michigan State? I think Tucker is a good fit at Michigan State. Personality-wise, I think the fan base likes him. He's been here before. He knows the landscape. So the fit question, I think Tucker theoretically is a better fit than Harsin at Boise State. But the things he did at Boise State, that's a very good resume also. Just seems like he might have been more inclined to be the coach moving on to Arizona or somewhere else out west. Arizona goes out and hires Jed Fish. I thought Jed Fish was an excellent play caller. The one year that he was at Minnesota, Michigan State ran into him, lost to him on Halloween night out in Minneapolis. You might remember that game. Michigan State was the victim of some atrocious officiating on that day. But Jed Fish hit them with some scripted plays early that rang the bell early for at least 1 or 2 touchdowns early in that game. They started hitting that wheel route against Michigan State's cover 4. They were one of the first teams to really start to victimize Michigan State's cover 4 with the wheel route. Jed Fish, good X's and O's guy. I thought he was a good X's and O's guy with his 1 year with Harbaugh at Michigan. I thought he did a good job. Problem is he's not coached a lot in college over the years. He's been an NFL guy. What is he, 45 years old? Does he really want to do all the rah-rah college stuff? That's part of the game. That's part of the gig. So, I don't know. Jed Fish is interesting. If he had gone somewhere else and he had won a little bit, I would have been very intrigued with him as a coach at somewhere like Michigan State. It's kind of similar to what Mel Tucker was. Mel Tucker, extensive experience in the NFL. Tucker, more experience as a coordinator in the NFL than Jed Fish. Tucker, with a year of head coaching experience, gave him a little bit of an edge. I don't know if Fish, if he had any contacts with Arizona, if he knows anything about that area like Tucker does. But you're asking me, how are these hires comparing to Mel Tucker? And off the top of my head, that's what I'm looking at there. Vanderbilt goes out and hires an alum, Clark Lee, 4 years of defensive coordinator at Notre Dame's done a good job there. Makes sense. There's not a lot of former Vanderbilt people out there at a position of strength like that. You talk about a coordinator, a coordinator at a place that just went to the college football playoff. That's a pretty good coordinator nationally, right? And not a lot of people banging down that door to become the head coach at Vanderbilt. That made perfect sense. A lot of people were calling that one from the beginning. Coordinator at Notre Dame, is that better than Mel Tucker being coordinator at Georgia and in the NFL? He wasn't coordinator at Alabama. But no, it's similar. Being coordinator at Georgia, being coordinator at Notre Dame. So that one's similar. Brett Bielema going to Illinois. Bielema wanted the job here at Michigan State. There were some people behind the scenes and some back channels trying to make that one happen. He was making it known clearly that he wanted the job and was never really taken seriously. So Illinois gets him. Bielema's got a chance to, if he's taking some smelling salts, come to his senses a little bit. He's got the capacity to do a good job, I think. I think it's worth a shot for Illinois. He is a retread. He's not that old. He was off to a good start at Arkansas, Bielema was, and they went away from, ground and pound hog football and tried to go a little more spread formation pass game, and that was a bad decision. Does he get back to hog football at Illinois? There at Illinois, you're not too far from Ohio. You're not too far from some of his contacts up toward Wisconsin. Could he get that going again? I think it's possible. I wouldn't slam the door on that one. South Carolina hires Shane Beamer, 43 years old. I don't know about that one. South Carolina, that's in some ways that's a big rig job. Also, everything in the SEC is big rig except for, Vanderbilt. Missouri in its own way is a decent job. Difficult, but they've got some resources. South Carolina, Shane Beamer, talking about what a great recruiter he is. He'd better be a great recruiter. He'd better hire some great staff, too, because you look at his resume. He was tight ends coach at Oklahoma. He was also assistant head coach, but, that doesn't always mean much at all. But, Shane Beamer, tight ends coach, coming in as a tight ends coach. Prior to that, he was tight ends coach at Georgia. Prior to that, he was running backs coach at Virginia Tech for his dad. That being said, Dabo Swinney was never a coordinator. He was just a wide receivers coach. Urban Meyer was just a wide receivers coach at Notre Dame before he went off to Bowling Green, I think it was. But Urban Meyer did great things at Bowling Green, did great things at Utah. That was different. Shane Beamer has yet to do great things. It's a curious hire. Mel Tucker's a better hire than that. I say that, but 7 years from now we might say, hey, man, South Carolina struck it rich with Shane Beamer. Kind of doubt it, though. Anyway, let's, what do we got here? Let's see here. I'm just alerting some of the wise guys out there. Anyway, give us a call if you want to join the fun. Let me go over here to the chat area, see what's cooking over in the chat area. By the way, if you're just joining in, my name is Jim Comparoni, publisher of SpartanMag.com. Been publisher of SpartanMag.com since the beginning of the internet. Basically, I'm an old person. SpartanMag.com is the Michigan State site for Rivals.com. Some of these questions that I was answering earlier were posted over at the Underground Bunker message board, which is the church of what's happening now with Michigan State sports. That is the top gathering place of astute Michigan State fans, the top place on the internet. SpartanMag.com is the best web community anywhere on the internet of Michigan State fans. Go check it out. Go over to SpartanMag.com. You can subscribe for free for a month. Check it out. Let us know what you think. We're always looking for new subscribers. Come on in and give us a little bit of a chance there, and I think that you will love it. I think Big Don came through with another sponsorship, and we sure appreciate that. In the meantime, I want to go check something out because we've got some help from, I want to get his name here. There he is. Spartan MD. Spartan MD sent this in for the tip jar, for the personal sponsorship, ringing of the bell. It's one of those things you see at the bar when someone tips and you ring it. I don't have any place to mount it really here in the studio, but I wanted to bring that out to it. Spartan MD over at SpartanMag.com. Thank you for sending that in. Really appreciate it. Thanks for thinking of us. It's a lot of fun. Thank you. Thanks to Big Don also. All right, let's take a look over here in the chat area. Old Tuck was the first one to call in. The bell cow is here. Appreciate Old Tuck being first one in. Young Feezy baby. Not sure about this one. Let's see.
Call from. To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2.
That was from New Boston, Michigan. Decided not to leave a number. He called in at, let's see here, 734-415-23. All right. Let's see what we got here. Young Feezy Baby, also the second person in, says posted the vid for you, Jim. Which video was that? Oh, that was the Kenneth Walker, the third video from Wake Forest. If so, thanks for posting that. Angelo Gross, Harold Joyner enthusiast is here. Matthew Bobe, or is it Bobby? I'm not sure. It's a name that I've not seen before. He says, what are your thoughts on Michigan State in the transfer portal so far? And Hayden Vischer saying, what's up, fellas? So we've got a starting five of Old Tuck down low, Young Feezy Baby, Angelo Gross enthusiast in the backcourt. It's a two-man backcourt. Matthew Bobe, stretch 4. Hayden Vischer on the wing. That's our starting five. Great to hear from those guys. And it's New Boston calling in again. So anyway, I might call him back after the show, see if he's a legitimate caller or not. Got to keep our guard up a little bit. Never sure what's going to happen. So Matthew Bobe says, "What are your thoughts on MSU and the transfer portal so far?" You know, the quarterback thing, we talked about that a lot 2 weeks ago. We'll be talking about it throughout the offseason. No question about that. Rousseau, the quarterback from Temple. Interesting one. Harold Joyner, the running back from Auburn. Interesting one. Offensive tackle, Jarrett Horst from Arkansas State. Defensive end, Drew Jordan from Duke. And now Kenneth Walker the third from Wake Forest. Russo, we talked about him a lot.
And I think people, we talk about like Darrell Summers back in the day. I'm not going to hate on Darrell Summers, but, he was a guy that really couldn't pass the basketball and put it in, he really couldn't. And A.J. Hoggard has that ability, much like a Cassius Winston or a Magic Johnson or Scott Skiles, to put the ball where it needs to be so the guy can be efficient. I was talking to my buddy who's an assistant coach at a Division I school in Conference USA, and I'd watched his game on Saturday. And during their game on Saturday, I thought they had maybe two passes that were precise and on time. Because if the ball's not in the right spot, then basically your offense lags down, and then you have to create a one-on-one move. So, the efficiency of your offense goes away, especially like if you have a down cut, if you have a down screen, a guy's coming off a screen, and it's a curl move and trying to get the ball right away. If that ball's not where it needs to be, you can't get that shot off in time. That just throws your offense out of whack. And I was impressed with Hoggard. He had a nice screen and roll. His first half, I don't know, got the ball. It was a screen and slip, and he threw a beautiful pass right down the middle of the lane for, I think, either for a layup or dunk. Can't remember who it was.
Kithier. It was to Kithier, I think.
He has a knack.
Kithier.
Okay. Well, he has a knack. He has an amazing ability to pass the basketball. He's a A-plus passer, and I think that, as the team matures over the next, 4 to 6 weeks, he's going to get better. Now, the defense, he's going to struggle because he's not there physically, but I think that's why they start him with Langford and Henry, and, I don't know what, Kithier, I think, just does the right thing offensively. That's why he starts still. But, Hoggard, he needs maturity out there. That's why Langford's still out there. I think that's part of the reason that Gabe Brown doesn't play maybe as much with Hoggard, because he's not as mature as a player as Langford knows what to do. So I think on the second unit, I like seeing Rocket Watts with Gabe Brown. I think Izzo, gets 8 or 9 players, and he can get Rocket Watts maybe playing, say, 16 minutes at the point versus 24 minutes at the point as the team, progresses. I think you're going to see some things, because A.J. Hoggard impressed me. I think he had, 6 assists to 1 turnover, scored 4 or 5 points, but he is a old school point guard, not ultra quick, but bigger bodied kid, 6'3", every bit of 215, maybe 210 now. They're trying to get him down to 205, 210 if I'm not mistaken. But I'm impressed with his ability to get Michigan State in the offense, and I think over time it's only going to get better.
Interesting viewpoints. Here on the SpartanMag YouTube channel, somewhere we posted some video of A.J. Hogard when he was in high school. Actually, we commented on his video or something, and he struck me in high school as, what is he, 6'2"? How tall is he? How tall is Hogard?
He's probably 6'3". I think he's a big. He's got a lot of hair, so you don't know exactly how tall. But I mean,
he reminded me. He reminded me if Draymond Green had been 6'3", he would be AJ Hogard. That's what I posted, something along those lines, commenting about some Hogard film, some high school film. I mean that as a compliment, but he just had like that feel for the game. Nothing tremendously dazzling. You know, Izzo has compared him to Denzel Valentine a little bit. You know, Denzel was dazzling at times, but just that feel of cutting through things and setting somebody up with a nice little pocket pass here and there. There actually was one pass that was dazzling in this game, right? Or maybe I'm thinking of something else. But
I know also, you know, I want to go to where he came from. He's from Coatesville, right, Pennsylvania. So if you think about Metro Philadelphia, you know, Rip Hamilton's from that same hometown, and then you go to Chester, Pennsylvania, where the best coach in Wisconsin history is from, Bo Ryan, and then you think about, you know, Villanova, you know, the Palestra. I mean, Philadelphia is old school, well-coached basketball. I mean, it just is. It's different than going to Western Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh, but Philadelphia has always had a great brand of basketball. I don't know why it's so much different than maybe it's more the, I don't know, city influence being, you know, the fifth largest city, but those kids are always well-coached. I mean, you always look at Villanova, they won, you know, I don't know how many national titles, 2 out of the last 5 years, but well-coached, understands fundamentals, not flashy. Those Philadelphia kids are never flashy. You think about that group that played at Penn State the last couple years, Lamar Stevens, all those kids that went to Roman Catholic, all fundamentally sound, not flashy, know how to play, knows how to put the basketball. That's just something those Philadelphia kids just know how to do. And I think we kind of take that for granted because, I mean, that's one thing Hoggard knows how to do. I think he knows how to play, and his pace is really good. Similar to Cassius Winston, I'm not saying he's on that level, but understanding that you don't have to play fast, you have to play smart. I think Hoggard has that ability.
And we're just seeing the beginnings of A.J. Hogard. Just seeing the beginnings. And there's a reason Izzo went in that direction. He has seen things in practice, and he felt that was the direction to go. And it's looked pretty good so far. And you and I talked about that, was it last week? Was it 7 days ago? When we were theorizing that they might go full-time to Hogard as the point guard? Because Izzo had said, I think after the Minnesota game, that Hogard, maybe it was the game prior to that, maybe it was the Wisconsin game, when he said Hogard was his next experiment, his next project. And I was like, well, what does that mean, project? He wants him to play more. Now, Izzo's always saying, I got to get this guy more time, got to get this guy more time, got to get that guy more time, because he wants those people to hear that he's thinking about them in the press. But when he says he's the next project, I was like, okay, what does that mean? Then he went out and played early against Minnesota, played like 15, 60 minutes, and things looked better, a little bit better with him running the show. And you and I theorized, is this a case of Izzo drastically changing horses in midstream at the point guard position? Something we've seen him do before with success. We talked about that here on this show 7 days ago, right? Then he goes out, starts against Nebraska, plays pretty well, starts against Rutgers, plays even better, and we got our answer. We talked about that here extensively on this show. I'm not sure other shows were talking about it in those terms at that time, that this could be possibly the equivalent of 2003 when he moved Allen Anderson as a sophomore from wing to point guard out of nowhere, or in 2005 when he moved Drew Neitzel to starting point guard. Went to the Final Four one year, went to the Elite Eight the other year. Difference is, Neitzel had been playing pretty well, and some of his teammates suggested that they go in that direction. Allen Anderson, he'd started as a freshman, had played a lot, and they just shuffled things around. In this case, A.J. Hogard had not played much at all, so it's the most drastic of changes Izzo has made in terms of changing a point guard horse at midstream. He knows better than we do. We've seen him. He has seen him in practice. He saw something he likes. Secondly, he probably obviously saw enough from Rocket Watts that it just was not clicking, and it was becoming a strain. And Watts wants to play the two, so let him do that. Let's try this other quarterback and see what happens. So far, so good. There are going to be some bumps in the road. There will be times when things don't look so good for Hogard. It happens with all point guards at Michigan State, especially a freshman. So Izzo's going to be on his tail, like I said earlier. Henry's going to be smoothing it out. Against Rutgers, Izzo was really on Hogard a couple times about being a little bit casual on defense. Sometimes you think you're playing good defense. He'll show you the film of what it's supposed to look like. And he'll show film of Charlie Bell playing defense or others and what it's supposed to look like on defense. Even Aaron Henry, captain, junior, third-year player, basically a third-year starter, against Northwestern and some of these other games, he was out to lunch on defense. You only have to be out to lunch for about a split second, and the guy's got separation on you. Now you're getting screened more heavily. You can't get out of the shooter, and he just busted another 3 on you. Or you're going under the screen, and then you're chasing him all the way back to the rim, and they're scoring layups on you, and you're getting compromised. And it only takes a little bit. That's some of Izzo's greatness. He eliminates those little 1-second vacations, gets rid of them. And part of it is being a very demanding coach. He'll show you on film. He'll be demanding during a game. He'll be very impolite during huddles. And that's what Hogard has coming to him. He made mistakes against Rutgers. They won the game up by 12. At the time, whatever it was, doesn't matter. You're doing it wrong on defense. You're doing a good job as our quarterback. We need you to do that. But if you're going to be our quarterback, I can't have you giving up 25 every night back here. So quality control, championship standard. Izzo sees the guy that's setting the table. He likes him as a table setter. We'll see where that goes. In the meantime, you can't be springing leaks back here on defense. So that's going to be a constant thing. And if Watts comes along a little bit better as a point guard, there will be times when Hogard this year gets benched, right? There'll be a couple times when he gives up a couple threes, doesn't get around screens on defense well enough, and Izzo will bench him. Right now, he needs minutes. He needs repetitions, so they're going to force feed him with that. The team needs that steadiness on offense, but there'll be a time when Hogard will get that Darrell Summers treatment, that Brandon Dawson treatment. Not that he's a bad guy, but it has to be driven home to him soon, has to be driven home immediately. That process has to be expedited because Izzo's going to try to take this team as far as it can go. And in order for it to go as far as it can go, you can't spring leaks on defense at the point, and it's on him now. At least 20, 25 minutes a game. The way it looks right now, it's going to be intriguing to watch Izzo go to work on that, Nils, because this project is a little different than he's done it before, and it's quite different in terms of the depth of the Big Ten Conference this year, every single night.
Well, because there's no easy games, so you can't experiment. All the experimentation was supposed to be in the non-conference, and the fact that Hogard had hurt his knee and he kind of gotten out of shape, and they're trying to rebuild his body. You can see that. So that's a big portion of what Michigan State's going to have to do over the next 6 weeks, as this conference season only gets tougher by the game. Hogard's going to have to continue to get in better and better shape because Izzo's going to ask him to play sometimes 24 minutes, maybe sometimes 32 minutes. But, I think a lot of times I'm just interested to see when they close out games what they're going to do. Because they're going to go with the defensive, mindset of Rocket Watts, having to shut down their, opponent's, best point guard or best, scorer, or are they going to go with the offensive version? Because it looks like to me that's going to be kind of, they're going to be kind of conflicted there.
I agree. And, late in the Nebraska game, they took Hogard out because of the conditioning situation. Nebraska was going down a little bit of a run. There were some defensive issues there, so they went with Watts, and Watts played some defense, and he hit a nice little baseline jumper, I think. But also, the offense became more stagnant, and there was a forced jumper in the lane. They went back to Hogard for a minute and a half. Then he came in and missed a free throw, and then they went back to Watts. So, good question. He's got to get his conditioning down. He's got to become solvent on defense. And we will continue to learn as games are played, beginning with this Purdue game. And then after that, Michigan State is going to Iowa, I think, on Thursday. And the matchup situations down low, with Travion Williams. Does Kithier start with him? By the time people watch this, that game will already be over. But I thought it was intriguing against Rutgers that Michigan State started that game with Kithier on Ron Harper Jr. Kithier being a little more quicker of foot than Hauser, although Hauser is technically the stretch 4 when it comes to defense. Kithier was the primary defender against Harper, who is Rutgers' top offensive threat and also their best mismatch player is a mismatch stretch 4. So Kithier did it for a while. Then Malik Hall came in, and Hall ended up playing more minutes than Kithier, and Michigan State probably got better on defense when they went to the bench with Hall. So they grew some there. Now Travion Williams, Detroit Henry Ford, Michigander. Michigan State looked at him, did not offer, has played well against Michigan State in the past. Now he's going to try to go to work against his former in-state school. He didn't go to Michigan State, but he'll be plenty motivated for that one. What did you think about Michigan State reducing the playing group to 8 players in the second half against Rutgers? In the second half, Lawyer didn't play, Bingham didn't play, Sissoko didn't play.
I mean, I think, for that type of game, I think they realized what they had. And I think the biggest thing is familiarity, though. The reason there's 14 turnovers in the first half is because no one's played with each other. I mean, you go back to a lot of those times, like you'll see a pairing of, 5 guys, they've never played together in practice or whatever it may be.
Absolutely.
So there's no continuity. That's why the ball's not in the right place, and that's always an issue. And Izzo is not going to go for 14 turnovers in the first half. I mean, the fact that Michigan State was up 11 or 12 points in the first half and they turned the ball over 14 times. Now, a lot of them weren't. The thing was, they weren't the old turnovers for touchdowns that Michigan State's well known for. I mean, Michigan State will go down to Indiana, Purdue in a horrible situation. They'll turn it over 6 or 7 times. It'll be turnovers for touchdowns, and there's 12 points right there that Michigan State's given up that they're not going to get the benefit of when it's all said and done. And so it wasn't one of those games because there's so many stop balls. The turnover would go out of bounds, so Michigan State didn't get hurt as bad as they typically would when people are, jamming the passing lanes. But I think it's going to have to come down to the fact who's comfortable with each other. I mean, Sissoko's not going to be ready offensively, for another 12 months. Now, the fact that he can do some things defensively, and, come Friday, who's the guy that could probably guard Travion Williams? It's probably Sissoko or Marble. And, they didn't play much. I don't know what the situation is with Marble. I know the situation going back to his dad passing away. I think he's working through some things. But, I think Sissoko is the one guy on the team that could probably guard, Travion Williams. So, how many minutes do you play him in the first half? You give him 6 minutes in the first half and 6 minutes in the second half just to make sure that Travion Williams doesn't go off like he did last year down in West Lafayette when he abused us.
Izzo mentioned that Bingham has played well against Williams in the past. I can't remember. I can't remember that specifically. I think Bingham started last year against Purdue and played about 19 minutes, and Purdue won handily. But that's what Izzo said today in the press conference. Not sure. But Sissoko, I thought it was interesting that he was the first center off the bench, the second big man because Hall went in prior to him. But it's the first time that Sissoko had went into a game before Bingham and Marble. And you got to like his rebounding, his length, he's got some suddenness in terms of running the court with some speed. I don't know much about him offensively. It's been a little bit of a mess when he's gotten chances. He hasn't gotten many chances. But when you look at players on the schedule in the future, including Dickinson at Michigan, is Sissoko the guy best equipped to play defense on Dickinson? I don't know. Hunter Dickinson having a great freshman year at Michigan, very mature player, 20 years old, and very good with his
27?
20.
He went to Michigan's junior college for like 6 years, right?
I don't know.
They have a junior college. They
Came out
call
of-
that the General Studies program where my buddy Ray Jackson and Ty Street, is that where they went to college?
No, he came out of DeMatha.
I'm just kidding.
I
I'm
know.
just kidding.
And he's good left hand, good jump hook, on that left block, going to his right shoulder with his left hand, good counter moves. I've not seen enough of him to see what he's got with his right hand. I saw him with a jump right hook against Minnesota last night that front rimmed. Didn't look so good. Can you overplay him dramatically to the right shoulder? I don't know. You can bet Michigan State is already started on Michigan film because Michigan looks good. They look really good. No question about that. I'm surprised. He talked earlier about players becoming familiar with one another and needing to. I'm surprised with Smith, the point guard from Michigan. I think he transferred from Columbia, and Dickinson, true freshman, one a transfer, one a true freshman, that those two play really well together. Ball screen. And that Smith kid, number 12, whatever his name is, he might be the best passer in the Big Ten right now. Excellent with the pocket passes off ball screens. Very good with that stuff. So Michigan State looking far ahead. That's late in the season to get into the film and figure that stuff out. And by then, will Michigan State be better? By then, can Michigan sustain? We'll see. But it's going to be an interesting storyline later in the season. What's going on with football, Nils? What do you got?
Who do I have on Monday?
What's that?
What'd you say?
What's going on with football?
I don't know. Maybe I like this Wake Forest pickup. I think that was, another nice move. It looks like they're interested in a kid, that DB out of South Lake Carroll in Dallas, who's at OU right now, that Barnes kid. I think they need – I think Michigan State needs a DB and at least one linebacker. I think they brought in another defensive end, so there'll be a rotation of 3 or 4 there. They've got some depth on the defensive line. Now, linebacker's the key because, Noah Klein or Noah Harvey and Chase Klein are all you have. I don't know what the freshmen did last year. I'm assuming they're going to bring in somebody they can backdate to 2019, that recruiting class, or 2020, whatever you're going to call it. And then I think you're going to see 2 or 3 after everyone figures out who they like and who they don't like in the spring games. So I just think that's the weakness in the program right now is linebackers.
Linebacker?
By far, right?
I don't know. Yeah. Tight end, linebacker. They're not where they want to be in a lot of areas. We'll talk about it all off season, and I think you and I have talked about it before, but with Russo coming in at quarterback and Peyton Thorne, how do you handicap that competition?
I think it's a situation, from the people I've talked to at Temple, Russo has got a big-time arm. If you can protect him, he's got a chance, It's Peyton Thorne, maybe I'm hoping Russo's the guy because I think for where Michigan State's at right now, if they want to go 7-5 next year or 8-4, I think Russo has to be the guy. I just have a hard time believing Peyton Thorne from what we've seen of him so far is there. I think in time I was impressed with, he's got some gunslinging ability, but I just think a fifth-year guy is a little bit more mature, that's been through the wars, thrown for 7,000 yards. That's the guy that I'm banking on if Michigan State wants to go 7-5, 8-4. I just think there's too much unknown about Peyton Thorne at this juncture. He's played 2.5 games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they've improved the talent pool there at quarterback. There's no question about that. The running back thing with Kenneth Walker, I did not see that one coming. Michigan State already had Harold Joyner. They've got Davion Prim coming in from Oak Park. I don't know where Prim figures in. I don't know where Elijah Collins figures in. Connor Hayward presumably is back. Jordan Simmons looks like he's got a good future. So Simmons, Joyner, Kenneth Walker. I don't know what's up with Elijah Collins. The coaches are not having press conferences with us right now for obvious reasons. They want to keep some things quiet as they continue to try to attract talent. I'm wondering, I've got my ear to the ground, at what point do they have meetings with players? They had their exit poll meetings. But, for instance, if they had decided, Elijah Collins and Brandon Wright, we think both of you guys can play linebacker. At what point do they tell them that? Do they tell them right during the exit polls, and then open the door if they want to leave, they can leave? But I'm just wondering because there's not been any movement at linebacker with the transfer portal. And the kid from, where was it? Was it North Dakota or something, or Northern Iowa? There was a linebacker from Traverse City, and he was very interested in coming to Michigan State. Michigan State was in contact with him. Michigan State could not promise a scholarship, so he went ahead and signed with Nebraska. That was a linebacker. I don't know if they didn't think his film was good enough. I think he was second team all Missouri Valley or something like that. But there's not been much happening in the portal with Michigan State that we can detect at linebacker, aside from Nateote, the kid from USC. I don't know. Maybe they're waiting to see what happens there, and then if they don't get him, then they'll make decisions after that. But I don't close the door on the possibility that one of those running backs, Collins or Wright, could move to linebacker. They both had good film on defense in high school. I mean, I'm not a proponent of it. I think Elijah Collins can be obviously he was a 900-yard rusher as a redshirt freshman. I don't know why he fell out of the playing group this year. I mean, the coaches are going to play whoever they think is the best. We're not in practice. We don't know what happened there. We saw Collins on the field, did not have great productivity when he had carries this year. It seemed like every time he had the ball, the blocking was not so good. Had a few good carries against Northwestern. I thought maybe he'd turn the corner. Then the next week, once again, only had maybe one carry for -2 yards. So I don't want to shut the door on him. In my opinion, Elijah Collins is a proven Big Ten tailback. Really a strange situation. Never really got great explanations on what was going on there. I'm not second guessing it. I just think it's peculiar. But I do think that Brandon Wright possibly could play some defense. But that being said, would you rather have that and go to work on it, or go to the portal and get somebody that you've got film on? You know, I mentioned it before early. I don't want to compare everything to D'Antonio, but we compare things to what we know and what we've seen in the past. Early in the D'Antonio era, they took a walk-on, Brandon Denson, started him at linebacker, took Ryan Allison from wide receiver, started him at linebacker. You know, for a team that ended up going 6-6 or whatever it was. Back then, 6-6 looked like really good progress, right? Well, D'Antonio built the program such that 6-6 doesn't look like progress anymore. So whereas D'Antonio could just be patient and manufacture things in a methodical, pragmatic fashion, Tucker, I think he wants to go a little more full blast. Everybody wants to be as good as you can be as soon as you can be. But I don't know what's going on with linebacker. We just have to sit and wait and watch. Because, like I said, it's not like they're having press conferences every week to tell us what's going on in the war room.
But I think what about the running back from down here in Manville? What is it? Donovan Eaglin? Is that it?
Yeah. He was. He signed last year.
I don't know.
He redshirted. Well, he didn't. I guess he redshirted this year for what it's worth. But I have not heard a word about him. He did not travel, didn't dress, didn't hear a word about him. When Anthony Williams moved to the portal, Michigan State at that time had 6 running backs on scholarship. Williams left, they had 5. Haven't heard anything about him. Nothing. So I'm
that's
guessing.
Interesting. I mean, he's a kid even on the roster.
Yeah. Maybe a decision has been made there already and we just haven't heard. Maybe they like him and they want to keep him. No way of knowing unless guys enter the transfer portal. So, I don't know. What we do know is they've brought in 2 graduate transfers at running back, and it's been interesting. All right, Nils. Anything else, man?
Yeah, I'm good. I hope you're having a good New Year.
Not bad. What about the nation of college basketball? Anything caught your eye nationally? Baylor took somebody down again last night. They got all that talent. Gonzaga, it looks like they're going to go undefeated, the most talented team they've had. Duke doesn't look good. Kansas lost at home by 100 to Texas.
Texas is good. I mean, I'm not a big fan of. I mean, I won't go there. I'll just be quiet. But Texas is good. Texas has big depth. I mean, up front. I mean, Jericho Sims. I mean, I think he's a senior now, and they're old. I mean, Matt Coleman's a senior. Courtney Ramey is a junior. Andrew Jones is a fifth year senior. They got Royce Hand, who hasn't played the last couple of years. He's a senior. Like, Texas is an old school college basketball team that won the NIT 2 years ago. Would have probably made the tournament last year, even with all the injuries. They got a kid, Brock Cunningham, who's kind of their 6th, 7th man, who kind of does all the dirty work. And Jace Febris isn't even back. He had microfracture surgery. He's probably their best pure shooter. He's working his way back. He might be back in another 3 or 4 weeks. And then Alvin Williams was hurt. So I think Texas, I mean, because they got the one and done in Greg Brown, 6'8", athletic freak, top 10 player in the country last year out of Austin Vandergrift in the Austin area. I mean, Texas has some pieces, and they're playing much faster on offense. I think they kind of figure out their situation on offense. And you got a senior point guard. It changes everything. The fact that Matt Coleman is a 4th-year senior, he's going to be the all-time assist leader at Texas. I mean, it makes you that much better because you've got a guy that's been through the wars and knows what the head coach wants, to be done. So I think Texas is a team I could see them. I mean, I have always had doubts, but I could see them making a run at least the second weekend and maybe even to the Elite Eight. If, they have a chance. They've got the pieces. I think next to Gonzaga, I think they have as much top-end talent as anybody.
Really? What about Baylor?
Yeah.
Can you imagine Texas and Baylor both making the Final Four this year?
I mean, that'd be interesting. I mean, Baylor, what Scott Drew, no one understands that, in Scott Drew's first year when he took that job, they didn't play a full schedule. I mean, they had all of the Dave Bliss stuff. I mean, the job he's done, and every year they're old, right? Mark Vidal is a kid out of Louisiana. They redshirted. He's a fifth-year guy, probably one of the best defender in the Big 12 this year. I mean, just a tough, physical dude. Reminds you kind of those guys that, like a Jay Sean Tate, who went to Ohio State and now he's playing with the Rockets. Just big, physical dude, can do a lot of things, And then they get those kids out of Louisiana. And they got the Maceo Teague, the transfer from Auburn, who's on that Final Four team. I mean, they've got some pieces, and they're just tough. They're not going to give you an inch. I mean, Scott Drew being from Valparaiso, Indiana, went to Butler. He was there when my brother-in-law was there back in the day, and he done an amazing job there at Baylor. I mean, amazing job what he's done there. And they're going to be in until the end because they can play defense. They're not going to give you anything easy for sure. What they did to Illinois this year was really impressive early on.
Close up with the Michigan State Spartans, 2-3. You expecting them to get back in the race for this conference title, or do you think someone's going to run away with it?
I don't. I mean, I just think there are too many good teams. I don't think there's any way you can run away and be 15 or 17-3. I mean, I'm impressed with what Iowa did. Going to Rutgers, beating them, and flying back home, and then going back and out there and beating up on Maryland tonight. Winning by 20 on the road. If anybody can do it, would be them. But I just don't trust them defensively. And I think, that's my only thing about Iowa, right? Are they going to play both ends? I mean, offensively, they're probably the best team in the country next to Gonzaga, right?
I don't know.
As I say that, you don't realize that Dakota Mathias is in the NBA. You realize that?
No.
He just hit like an 18-foot jump shot. You know who he married?
I do not know.
Greg Gary, the former assistant who's now the head coach of Mercer, his daughter. I'm good friends with Coach Gary's brother, Jeff, who played at Vanderbilt. But,
hey, Mathias.
Dakota Mathias is playing in the NBA.
Mathias could shoot the blood out of it, right? And he was he 6'4"?
Oh, he could shoot the tar out of
and
get it out of there quick.
And not a liability on defense. Played good defense. So what's not to like there, right? If you have good teammates in the NBA, space
exactly.
out. I mean, hey, NBA players love it to have a dude out there that can space out and shoot, because that just creates more room for you with the ball, right? I mean, if you're a guy, if you're like a star player in the NBA, you love having, a Paxson over there just spacing things out. They got to go guard. Who's he playing for in the NBA?
The Sixers.
Really?
Can we say another about an NBA player? Probably the best evaluation that John Beeline ever had. Karis LeVert from Pickerington, Ohio. I mean, talk about a guy that just only gets better. I mean, he had like 16 here in the first half. He's dominating this game. I mean, no one knew that dude. I mean, but he's got unbelievable hands. He can shoot it, and he's long. Beeline was the best evaluating guys like that, I thought.
He evaluated a few of them really well. Watching Purdue, I mean, by the time people watch this, the Purdue game is going to be over. But if you watched Purdue much, youngest team in the Big Ten, 3 freshmen, they're playing a lot. But the defense, Michigan State has played terrible percentage defense for most of the season. They've played better defense the last 2 or 3 games. But to look at the Big Ten defensive standings, and at the bottom, Purdue 12th in the conference at field goal percentage defense at 42.7. Michigan State's up to 10 now at 42.5. And now I think Michigan State has found a little rhythm on defense and understanding on defense. And I expect their field goal percentage defense to continue to improve. But Purdue, a young team playing all those freshmen, but also I was watching them against Illinois, and they had Eric Hunter on Donsumu quite a bit. Eric Hunter, just a thin junior at 6'4". Hunter's a 10.8 per game guy on offense, not bad. But if he's your defensive stopper, I mean, that's a quite a departure from the days of Dakota Mathias and some other guys they've had that have just been killers on defense. Purdue, maybe they'll come out and play great defense against Michigan State. Maybe the lid will be on the rim again, and Michigan State will have another terrible offensive night like they did against Minnesota. I don't know, but Purdue on defense does not look like they normally do. I mean, they're trying to do it and get out and playing some pressure in the backcourt, but not quite usually what Purdue usually is. Anything else, Nils? Have you watched Purdue?
No.
Well,
I have not watched Purdue. I watched a little bit. They're always my least favorite team because my brother-in-law went there, and so and I had some issues in Tippecanoe County at one time. So I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of Purdue at all.
All right,
if I don't have to watch them at all, I'll be fine.
Well, you stay out of that county. All right.
Okay, will do.
Last year Michigan State lost to Purdue on January 12th, 71-42, and that was
by 100 points.
A good Purdue team. Cassius Winston in that game, 9 turnovers, 0 for 5 from three-point range. We all know what Cassius Winston was going through then.
That was the turnovers for touchdowns game too. God.
Yeah, it was a problem, and Purdue has done that to Michigan State a few times. Usually it's in West Lafayette. This time, I think, I don't know if they're playing twice this year, but going to be at the Breslin Center. And, it's intriguing because, the last 2, 3, 4 years, Michigan State, okay, they're playing at home, you probably win, whatever, let's see what they're working on, whatever. Now, this year, it's like you don't want to fall to 2 and 4. You definitely want to see continued progress. There's no guarantee that that progress will continue. We don't know what Hogard's going to look like. It's intriguing and entertaining because there's more mystery this year. And Michigan State could end up being a good team that can be really dangerous in March and do the usual thing. Or, the bottom could fall out. We don't know. After that Northwestern game, after going 0-3, I thought, and knowing that you didn't have as many games to pad your schedule in the early season. Thank goodness for Michigan State's reasons, for Michigan State's interests. Thank goodness to them that they went 6-0 in the pre-conference schedule and beat Notre Dame, Duke, and some others. Because if this had been a year in which they struggled in the non-conference season like they usually do, there would have been no buffer and no margin to have errors in the Big Ten season, which are probably still, there's going to be more of them. But I was getting into that thought, like, is this the year where they don't go to the NCAA tournament? And we think that every third or fourth year, there's like some sort of scare and he gets it all ironed out. This year with the Big Ten being so good and the point guard situation being such a question mark, I wasn't sure, but it seems a little more sure now than a week ago. A lot more sure because the defensive component, it looks like it's getting back in place. Get the defense, then all of a sudden you out-rebound somebody by 20 because it's hard to out-rebound people when they're shooting 51% against you, right? So rebounding, then the transition game. Hogard doing a better job of getting it, forwarding the ball. They'll continue to work on that. But Izzo saw something in Hogard, and we haven't seen all of that yet. But to begin with, he's solid, and that's valuable for now. All right, Nils, I'll let you go. Appreciate you coming in and joining the fun. You take care of yourself and stay out of what county was it in Indiana?
Okay.
What county was it?
Tippecanoe and Tyler too.
All right, Tippecanoe, Tyler too, all that stuff. Behave yourself down there in Houston. Stay out of Indiana for a little while longer. I know that's your native state, but you get a chance.
Exactly.
Well, maybe we'll talk about some of those NCAA tournament venues next time. And there was the one. What was the one? What was the one in Indianapolis? What's the old school arena? The little 6,000 seat arena.
That's the old. It's the Fairgrounds Coliseum. It's Pacers played there from like 67 to 74.
Yeah.
But it's the Indiana Farmers Arena now. It was called a Pepsi Coliseum for a while. It's over there in like the northeast side of town. That's where the State Fairground in Indiana is.
I love it. I saw pictures of it. I've never even heard of that place. But IUPUI plays there, right?
Yeah, the Jaguars. And then I think Wayne Gretzky, when he was at the Indianapolis Checkers and the CHL, because I forgot, he never played in the WHA. Indianapolis didn't have a team. I started looking it up. It was the Checkers I think he played with. Between he was in the OHL with the Sault Ste. Marie, and then I think he went with Indianapolis for a while before he went to Edmonton, if I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to figure out his
I think you're exactly right. And they played hockey there for a long time. The arena you're talking about, the reason we're bringing it up is because the NCAA tournament is going to be played specifically in the Indianapolis area this year. And, of course, you've got the Lucas Oil Stadium. You've got whatever that field house is. Used to be Conseco Fieldhouse where the Pacers play. Then there's
Bankers Live.
Yeah. Then there's West Lafayette. Are they using West Lafayette? Are they using Mackey Arena?
And then they're going to use Henkel as well.
Hinkle, Assembly Hall in Bloomington, Mackey Arena, Purdue. And then the sixth place is IUPUI's arena, holds about 6,000 people, built in like the 1920s, I think. Or nothing was
1939.
built. 1939? Well, okay, so 39. And you look at the pictures, and there's a lot of like those old like Jennison Fieldhouse windows, but Jennison had those windows on the end zones. This place has them in the end zones and along the side. So I'm guessing the natural lighting in there, like Hinkle Auditorium, I think probably even more because it's a smaller place with more windows. You know, NCAA tournament, you're playing afternoon games. I think it'd be amazing to watch a basketball game in there, an NCAA tournament. I'm kind of hoping Michigan State gets positioned there, assuming Michigan State gets there. But I would also, they still play hockey there. I think there's the IHL team used to play there, and there's, I don't know if it's an ECHL team now or something. That looks like that'd be a great place to watch a hockey game too. But I'd never even heard of that arena. And I was looking at photos earlier this week, and that's some Indianapolis trivia for everybody out there. Tournament time is going to be here before we know it, Nils. It's going to happen. We're going to have a tournament.
Oh, it'd be nice. 3 weekends in Indianapolis. Might as well. It could be one big party.
It's going to be a party, and the Spartans, I think, are going to be there. Got to keep proving it against Purdue and some others. Appreciate it, Nils. You take care.
Hey, buddy.
There goes Nils Deckow from Houston, Texas, one of the more astute observers of Michigan State sports, roaming the earth. What do we got here? Let's look at the chat area. Taven Hamack says, hello, people. Seth Foreman says, gentlemen of Sparta. Doors Fan 91 says, hello, everyone, go green. Seth Foreman got a super sticker, $1.99. Good job, Seth. Appreciating that. Where are we at here? No, that's not it. That's it right there. Appreciate it, my man. Ring-a-ding-ding. Seth Foreman for the tip jar. Where's the bell? There's the bell. Appreciate that for sure. All right. So Big Will says Matty Sissoko needs to play more. He was the first big man off the bench the other night. And like I said a minute ago with Nils, wouldn't surprise me if they're trying to get him to become a defensive trump card, a defensive card you can play against some of the big skilled guys they're going to see here in the near future. We'll see if he can stick on that part of the court. You'll learn about it as I learn about it because I've not seen him in practice. But he had more of a role this past game in the first half, although he did not play in the second half. Big Will says, is it true that Mel Tucker could make some staff changes? I wouldn't surprise. That wouldn't shock me. Seth Foreman says, thoughts on Dylan Tatum, a junior running back out of West Bloomfield. I looked at a little bit of his film early this season, and he looked quick. That's what I think about Tatum, quick. And Michigan State's right in there with him. He came in and visited before the lockdown, so he has seen Mel Tucker face-to-face. And I think Michigan State's going to be right in the middle of it. Rob South says, what's up, fellas? Darren Carpenter checking in. Darren Carpenter testing his mechanism. Jesse Adams from Mount Pleasant says, my first question is, do you think this football staff will maybe target a tight end in the portal? I think so. I've been thinking that for 10 months now, though, and it has not happened. This is my second question. Do you think Rocket Rots will be back next year? Yes, I do. I think the plan was he was expecting to really have a great year and look to go pro, but it'd be harder to do that now considering the way things have gone. Jesse Adams says, I think he will because he has not had the year that we thought he would have. I know there's a lot of basketball left. Keep up the great work, man. Thank you, Jesse Adams from Mount Pleasant, for chiming in. Don Strait says, hi, Jim. In your admittedly limited interaction with Coach Tucker, do you feel he has noticed that you have far better football chops than the usual media types he deals with? Or is it too early to tell? I don't know, but thanks for the compliments. And there's Don Strait with the super sticker. Appreciate that. Appreciate the compliments. No, I don't know. I don't know about any of that, but thanks for that comment. Jesse Adams says, was the Trayvon Morgan transfer a shock to you? Yes, it was. I mean, the guy finished up strong. He was in the playing group. On the travel team, dressed for all the road games, and came on strong at the end of the year. Heard he was playing well in practice. They figured him into the playing group against Penn State, ran a play for him, got a touchdown for him on the edge of the red zone, and he was the primary on that. He was the first read, and that was a play designed for him because Penn State had not seen him on film at all. Saved that for the red zone, went to it. It was a skinny post. What was it? Made it work, and he looked happy, and Tucker was happy after the game. He said, hey, we've been talking about getting Harold Carmichael into the game. Finally did. Harold Carmichael, for those of you that don't know, he was a big 6'7", 6'8" wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles in the mid to late 70s. He was a great one, number 17. And everything looked good. Was injured last year. And I thought things were looking positive for him in the near future and the long-term future at Michigan State. So, yes, I was surprised about that. And I heard that he didn't tell his high school coaches about it, and I heard they were surprised. And I heard there's still some talks going on there, but I don't know what's going to happen. Mr. T-Bone says, hello, guys. How is everyone doing? Gordon Tenona says, I erred in my statement about Watt, Brown, and Henry. I don't know what that's about. Angelo Gross, Harold Joyner enthusiast, says, I wonder who's going to start at running back. Jacob Terry says, are Collins, Hayward, and Simmons going to be told to take a hike? I don't think so, Jacob. I think Simmons is definitely in the fold. They seem to like Hayward this year. Collins, I'm not sure what happened. Talked about that with Nils a moment ago. Not sure which direction that one's going. Gordon Tenona says, highly doubtful. I don't know what he's talking about. Probably that might have been about Rocket Watts. Angelo Gross enthusiast says, Jacob Derry, definitely not Simmons or Collins, and probably not Hayward. Talking amongst yourselves. That's cool. Seth Foreman says, what are the odds of Monty Bates playing at Michigan State next year? I'm thinking he's going to reclassify. I think he's going to stick with his Michigan State commitment. I'm thinking 65%. Jesse Adams says, Jacob Terry, they aren't telling Simmons to leave. They love that guy. They loves that guy. Okay. Jacob Terry says, I like Simmons too, but you think Collins and Hayward are going to have room with the new additions? Great question. Fair question. I don't know. It's crowded, right? I don't know the answers there. Hayward was above Collins all season, though. We saw that, for better or worse. Jesse Adams says Collins and Hayward and Wright will bail. That's a prediction from him. Angelo Gross enthusiast says Simmons was top 5 in track in Georgia. Thank you for that. David says, what do you think will happen with the scholarship situation next year? Langford and Henry are the only guys who will probably be gone. They have 3 talented guys coming in with the potential for Bates. So scholarship situation, I think some guys are going to have to move on. I think there's some players right now not getting as many minutes as the real world would anticipate. I'm not saying anyone's unhappy. That's just the way things go. Gordon Tenona says, Comp, who is your top 10 greatest of all time college basketball coaches? John Wooden, Mike Krzyzewski, Dean Smith. I don't know. You putting Iba in there? You putting Rupp in there? I don't know. Calhoun won 3 national championships. Izzo's going to be in there. I think Izzo's a top 10. I don't know. That would necessitate a deeper dive. Bob Knight. Good question. That's a deep one. Jesse Adams says, Simmons and the staff have good mojo. Mel called him to get him here after Simmons decommitted when Mark left us in the wind. Jacob Terry says, and do the recent acquisitions at running back hurt our chances with Tatum in the future? Michigan State's going to keep trying to recruit over people's heads. Joyner, you're recruiting Tatum, and you're looking at Walker and Joyner, and those guys are going to be gone by the time Tatum would be a sophomore. So I don't think so. David says, especially with all the talent the team has right now, I feel like someone might transfer for more playing time. I would hope it doesn't come down to Izzo taking away a scholarship for someone like Jack. Jack who? I don't know who Jack is. I'm not good with single names, whether it be first names or last names. But I don't, a lot of people might have thought that Lawyer or Kithier might have transferred out this offseason. Kithier turned out to be a starter thus far, but players don't want to leave Michigan State. They did not want to leave this summer. So they had a lot of players back, and they thought that'd be a strength with the COVID situations. As it turned out, it might have been a little bit of a short-term detriment. Have to wait and see how it all pans out. Trash Mock says, where do you think Michigan State belongs in the rankings in basketball? If they beat Purdue, I think top 20, 19 or 20, something like that. Jacob Terry says 19. Jacob Terry says, until we see how well Hogard can handle running the team night in and night out against the top of the Big Ten. I agree with you, Jacob Terry. Jacob Terry's got some sound opinions, in my opinion. Trash Mock says, SpartanMag, what do you think? I agree with Jacob Terry. Yes, I do. Let's go back to, we had some people post questions over here over at the Underground Bunker message board. And I want to get back to those. I've got a couple other things going wrong here. Hold on a second. There it is. Marlowe had a question about Hogard. He says, I'm assuming there's a lot of point guard talk, and you're right, there has been. Marlowe from Grand Blank Post, he says, I think Hogard will be good moving forward, but my concern is Rocket Watts. Can we implement minutes with Rocket pushing the point, running that high screen with Hauser? Maybe go small with Henry at the 4. Basically, shooters to keep the lane clear for Watts. Watts' biggest value for us is at point guard. What is the easiest solution for him to give us 15 minutes there? He's going to keep getting his 10, 15 minutes unless he really crashes and burns, which I don't think is going to happen. They played Henry at the 4 against Nebraska. Looked pretty good. When you play Henry at the 4, that's just a seventh guy as a quote-unquote big. You're already having trouble getting minutes for Sissoko and Bingham and everybody else. Henry at the 4 is going to happen against some teams, but when that happens, that means Malik Hall or Hauser or someone else is getting fewer minutes. As far as Rocket playing the point, 15 minutes a game, I think that's possible. Put him there for 15 minutes, Hogard for 25 minutes. I think that's doable. Maybe 25 and 10 and 5 for Lawyer. I don't know, but they're not giving up on Rocket Watts as a point guard. Izzo still thinks that's his best position as a pro, wants to help him there, feels he can help the program, the Michigan State program as a point guard. But the decision-making just wasn't, there was not enough traction there, and Izzo had to change horses a little bit. And I mentioned this last night on the VCast. I rewatched Michigan State versus Minnesota yesterday just to get another look at that. And there was one play that really stood out. Michigan State was having their trouble shooting and everything. And Michigan State missed a shot, got an offensive rebound, missed, got another offensive rebound, and it kicked it back out to the outside. And Watts grabbed the pass like top of the key, dribble at the foul line, a leaning off balance 14-footer clang off the back of the rim. That's with like 18 left on the shot clock. Just a really panicky shot that didn't need to happen at that point. Not a good decision. I mean, if the shot clock's down to 2, okay. But right after an offensive rebound, new shot clock, not a complete shot clock. It goes back to 20 these days. But bless his heart, he's trying to make things happen. But differentiating between the time to hit the gas pedal for his own shot and to get something back out and run something, just not great. Not where it needs to be for this team that was 0-3 and needed a serious ironing out process. Hey, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel here if you're liking SpartanMag Live. We appreciate everybody coming in and checking in. Let's see. We've been through some of these other questions. Hogard. We'll probably table some of those other questions for a different show. Maybe we'll get to the point where we'll do 2 of these shows a week and run shorter ones. Not sure. Thanks for the thumbs up there. this week was busy with a basketball game on Tuesday. Had some stuff I had to do, family stuff last night. Also, was it Monday? Was the Izzo show on Monday? Probably could have done it on Monday. Anyway, 2 times a week. We've been saying that since the fall. We've had really good feedback from this. We appreciate everybody coming in and tuning in and getting with the fun here, being part of the SpartanMag.com community here live every week. Spartan Mag Live, we're taking phone calls now. Got to take Nils' thing off here. We appreciate the capacity to have people call in. We'd like to have more people call in. The person from New Boston, Michigan, who tried to call earlier. Sorry I didn't take your call, but the first time didn't make it through our screener. Maybe I'll call you back, see how you're doing, and figure things out next time. But give us a call before the show's over. Anybody else, if you want to join in. Gordon Tenona says, Bielema was a fool to leave Wisconsin. You're right. Mr. Bone Man 1 or whatever says, congrats to Nina Clouden for scoring your 1,000th point for Michigan State women tonight. They had a big game tonight against Maryland. What happened there? Michigan State was like number 24 in the country. Maryland was number 12. Looks like Maryland won by a score of 93-87. Wow, entertaining game. Michigan State filling it up with 87 points against number 12 ranked Maryland Terrapins. I'm going to have to go on my Big Ten Plus subscription and give that one a watch. Michigan State is 3-1 against ranked foes now. Michigan State women's team. Wow, good for them. I watched them against Minnesota earlier in the year. Nice quickness on that team. Some girls that were quicker than I remember them being. And the crossover with Clouden is good. The crossover with the girls from Muskegon, good. All right, Randy Morton says, if Mike Myslinski does not come, I think, to Michigan State, I think Logan Murray out of Flint will be a dog. We talked about Logan Murray a little bit last week. I've not looked at his senior film still, but I loved his junior film. I think he's a center. If you don't get Myslinski, Myslinski's a 6'3" center, so that's a good point. So if you don't get Myslinski, they're kind of the same type of player, right? And they are similar. If you look at their film, they're both tenacious, smaller center types. Good call, though. If they don't get Myslinski, Logan Murray is not a bad walk-on consolation prize. If you get both of them, it'd be tough for Murray to break through, right? Angelo Gross says Flint Powers is no joke. That's where Logan Murray's from. Jacob Terry says, where were Murray's offers from? Morton says he had Syracuse, Liberty, and Southern Miss. Yeah, Syracuse offered him early. Syracuse kind of blanket offers quite a bit, especially in the state of Michigan. Not sure if that was committable. I assume it was, but he had... I've never seen a guy have an offer from a school like Syracuse, and it turns out Liberty's pretty good, right? We didn't know that at the time. But I've never seen a guy with those type of offers as a junior commit to be a walk-on as a junior. I've never seen that before. I hear that he loves Michigan State and just wants to be a Spartan, and that's clear. That's obvious. When you're getting offers and you're like, I don't even care. I'm an 11th grader. Walk-on now. Boom. Let me sign something. Logan Murray. Little dude, but he's tenacious. He could play for somebody. And I'm glad you guys agree, because when I looked at his film, I'm like, dude, this guy's different. I'm not saying he's great. He's different. 6'2", and I just talked about the offers. So I'm glad that you guys agree, because when I was watching this film, I didn't know if I was just seeing something that wasn't the truth, but I think he is the truth. We'll see if that translates to the college level. Randy Morton says, I watched him play live versus the number 1 team in the state. Tore them up. DJV1855 says Thorne's quarterback rating was as poor as Rocky's and one of the worst in the Big Ten, even worse than Milton. I wouldn't doubt if Russo wins the job next year easily and Faye emerges as the starter for 2022. DJV has spoken. I'm not big on quarterback rating. I looked at Peyton Thorne. I thought he's pretty good. I'm surprised his quarterback rating was not good. How can it not be good? His completion percentage was good, produced some yardage, had a few interceptions. I guess you need touchdowns for your rating to get better, but quarterback rating, not the end-all be-all in my opinion, just a freshman. Seth Foreman says, the bell is tiny. I'll have to find a bigger one. Seth, is that you that sent this? what it is, it's one of these. It's like one of those things you have, above the bar. I don't have a bar here. Yeah. All right, Aaron May says, do you know why all of a sudden Marble is not getting any playing time? I talked about that a minute ago. Just speculation. I'm not sure. I don't know. Great question. Izzo's mentioned a couple times he's had a tough time with the passing of his father, as we all would. Being that far from home makes me wonder. His mother did come up to visit him. So, tough times for Marble. Like I said, maybe they've already made a decision in that regard. I don't know. I've not heard that. So don't go out and say that Comparoni is reporting this and that. We're just me and you in the fence post talking. Just us boys at the bar hanging out. If you want to know what I'm thinking, that's what I'm thinking. I don't know. It's a concern, though. Hope the best for him. Detroit Spartan says, I'm here, my Italian-American brother. Good to see you. Detroit Spartan says, Thorne looked incredible for a freshman versus some of the best defenses in the conference. His quarterback rating is irrelevant at this point. I would agree with that. And it's a good point about the defenses. Indiana was really hard on quarterbacks all year. I was impressed and surprised that Ole Miss had as much success as they did in the bowl game. Ole Miss did not have all their offensive components and still moved the ball pretty well through the air, although Ole Miss did not produce a lot of points. So, Indiana was close to getting some interceptions against Ole Miss, never quite made it happen. Disappointing in that regard. But for the Big Ten, Ole Miss with their tempo. Teams in the Big Ten, there's not many teams in the Big Ten that play really fast tempo. Northwestern does once in a while. So Indiana with their style, Ole Miss took them out of their game a little bit with tempo. It was harder for Indiana to do more of all the little tricky things they do on defense. I'm guessing. I watched it closely, didn't really study it, didn't talk to any coaches about it afterwards. Obviously, I don't cover those teams, but Ole Miss lit it up through the air, but didn't get a lot of points. But you're right, Thorne went against Indiana, went against Ohio State, went against Northwestern. So, point well taken. Played, half the game against Iowa, and, rallied them a little bit each time. Those are great defenses. Iowa's a great defense. Detroit Spartan says it's all about development for him. I would agree. Reigning Fame says, what do you think about Matty Sissoko getting more playing time? It seems to be a popular opinion, and I think we'll see more in this game. Purdue's got that gigantic 7'4", what's his name, Edey, freshman. Zach Edey, he's averaging 9 points a game, keeps it high. It's a plotter, but humongous individual, not unlike that big dude they had 2-3 years ago. I forget what his name was, the dude from Alabama. Purdue likes him like that, so Sissoko's going to come in, guard him a little bit. Sissoko was the first one off the bench against Rutgers, and I think that was about that game, but also about defensive development for some of these matchups coming out quickly in the Big Ten, including Edey for Purdue. Detroit Spartan says Peyton has nearly 10 completion percentage points on Rocky and a better touchdown to interception ratio, better competition. Yeah, that's where, quarterback rating. It's a tool, but it's not the end-all, be-all. Aaron May says, I agree with you, Detroit Spartan, on assessment of Thorne. He did very well considering the circumstances. Then some conversations here about pepperoni and Hot Pockets and bagel bites. I don't know where that's going. Chris Trinum says, yikes, Penn State paused all basketball activities due to COVID protocol. Yeah, I hope they're doing all right. That's unfortunate. I'm pleasantly surprised we've not seen more of that. Early in the season when Coach K was talking about shutting it down and other problems, it's still a problem, but I expected college basketball to have more problems this year than we've seen. Chris Trinum says, late to the party, but Mull 286 is on the scene. You had a good question last week, and you posted it again. Getting a little bit late in the show today. Probably not going to get to it today, but I've got an answer for you on that one. You asked who's the most known, and broccoli rabe is a superior sandwich to the Philly cheesesteak. I can't even pronounce rabe. I don't know what that means. Looks like I need to go brush up on my sandwich eating frame of reference. Rooster Cheese says, what's the word with us getting a portal corner? Our biggest need so far. Great question. I think you'll see a position change or two. A wide receiver to corner. Sometimes those happen in the winter and the spring. They take a look at it and they move people back. I don't know. But you're right. I mean, since we're in the portal, since we're looking at the portal, hey, you got a quarterback, got an offensive tackle, got 2 running backs, got a defensive end. While they're at it, how about a linebacker? How about a corner? How about a tight end? Could use all of that if they've got room, right? Detroit Spartan says, I heard both Akins and Bates are still planning to be teammates at Michigan State regardless of previous drama. I have no doubt that Izzo's gotten to work on that and ironed it out. But they're all going to have to grow up, including the adults that are coaching those young men. Detroit Spartan says, I know you East Coast cats like that broccoli rabe noise, but I like steak. I don't know what broccoli rabe is. Am I wrong to reveal my ignorance on something like that? Does that make people think less of me? I hope not. Probably do though. Jack Hoiberg, that is. Oh yeah, Jack Hoiberg and his scholarship. I mean that's they can take that away, no problem. Chris Trinum says, I fully expect a transfer in basketball from the 4-5 spot. Too many bodies there. Is Enoch still going to reclassify given that Watts is likely back? I don't know. Good question. I don't know. Let me see here. Hold on a second. Let me see what we got here. And also want to invite everybody, if you're still with us, go check out SpartanMag.com. Coverage of Michigan State basketball around the clock. Coverage of Michigan State football recruiting. As far as you're talking about Boakye, Enoch Boakye. That's a good question. Boakye wants to reclassify with Imani Bates. They're close. If Imani reclassifies, will they tell Boakye to... Yeah, you mentioned Enoch. I know him as Boakye, so that's why I wasn't really sure who you're talking about. Had to look it up because sometimes I forget stuff. It's a good point, though, with the logjam of big men. With Boakye, it might not be a great time for him to reclassify, but if he wants to, and he says, hey, man, take me now or you might lose me, maybe they take him. Great question. Those are some war room questions that I'm sure they've talked about, and I'll bet there's no answers yet. AO says, go Michigan. Wow. He's just, he's, AO, we appreciate your enthusiasm. I give him credit, though, because he didn't say any of those magic words that would get flagged by YouTube that get you sent off. So good for you. Hope you're having a good new year. We're all friends here. Detroit Spartan says, well, I know we're not all friends, but I don't hate that. You're a fan of your team. Good for you. Detroit Spartan says, well, this was actually through my better half. Her mom was Reinsdorf's executive assistant for years. He put me in touch. I don't know what you're talking about here. I'm going to just move on. We're about ready to wrap this up. We're 2 hours in. I only have about 2 hours of vocal cords. I don't know what you guys are talking about here. Talking amongst yourselves. Chris Trinum says, dating back to last year's bowl game, Comp definitely nailed the late ride read with that Wake team. It is unusual. Well, I haven't had much caffeine. I used to take caffeine intravenously. I don't drink caffeine much anymore. And today I had a decaf, which is more caffeine than I usually have. I used to love caffeine, but it just kind of tickles me wrong these days. All right. Broccoli Rob. Delicious. It's an East Coast thing. Okay. Broccoli Rob. Got to say it with an East Coast accent. Broccoli Rob. Okay. Sounds like Rob, not Rabe. All right, I learned something tonight. Hope everybody had a wonderful time. It's 10 o'clock Eastern. Go back to your lives. Go back to doing more productive things than this. But I do appreciate everybody taking a little time out of your new year to gather around and have a little fireside chat to talk Michigan State sports. And I hope everybody has a good second week of 2021. Hope everybody's doing great. Thanks for allowing me to be a part of your Thursday evening. Big basketball game on Friday, Breslin Center. I'll be there with Paul Konerdijk covering it for SpartanMag.com. Get over there and check out our coverage. Come back here next week. We'll talk a little more basketball, some football, other stuff. Maybe take a longer look at Kenneth Walker III's video. And we'll have another one of these. Maybe 2 next week. Anyway, thanks everybody for checking in. Thanks for the people, the tip jar stuff. Really appreciate that. See you next time, next week, right here, Spartan Mag Live. Take care, everybody.